Hello there, and welcome back to the Disconnected. I am still running down some of my favorite things from 2022 for film and physical media, and I promise I'm almost done. I've got two left, this video and one other, and this video is for my favorite films that came out in 2022. Okay, so first things first, for some reason I feel compelled to give some sort of disclaimer. I understand that I am not an expert on films that came out in 2022. I'm not somebody that saw all of the films that came out in 2022 or even a majority of films that came out in 2022. So I know that I'm missing very many films that would likely end up on this list. However, I can only work with what I have. So I'm going to go off of films that I know that I saw in 2022 and things that connected personally to me. That's the big difference. A lot of people are talking about the best films of 2022. I am not. These are films that meant more to me than maybe they meant to other people, and I hope that that is okay. And if you've been watching this channel for quite some time, you've heard a lot about most of these films, so I probably will not go into great detail. I just wanted to share my favorite films and the ones that mattered the most to me from 2022. So let's break them down. First, we have the honorable mentions. Now, this list is eclectic to say the least, and I hope it makes a sense for those that follow this channel. So first, I wanted to give a little bit of attention to Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I think that it was a well-made film, primarily because we got probably our best Marvel villain yet, and that was about it. We got a little bit of an emotional story. We got a nice send-off for T'Challa, but I still left the theater wanting more for some reason. The next one I wanted to highlight under honorable mentions, I don't even know if this actually counts as a 2022 film because technically this had a festival debut this year, and I saw a screener so that I could do an interview. But I wanted to discuss Kat Ellinger's film Orchestrator of Storms, the fantastique film of Jean Roland, and it is an incredible documentary. Absolutely one of my favorite experiences of the year, being able to watch that. And I can't wait for that to be in the hands of more people. I would assume, because it was done through Arrow Video, that there will be a physical release of that in the very near future. Hoping that that comes out in 2023. It is great, and absolutely more people are going to love this documentary. The next of my honorable mentions is one that a lot of people have watched recently, and that is The Leech. I watched this film on the Arrow Blu-ray that came out in December or November, and it was great. I was very much impressed with this film. I expected this film to be a bit of a disappointment, and yet Graham Skipper delivered a career best performance and somehow ended up being in a very engaging film that I loved. And I love that it was so closely related to Christmas without being about the holiday itself. It's just this tangentially related to Christmas film that I adore. I think that it was special and something that will echo for Graham Skipper for quite some time, because it is a really genuinely great performance and a really wonderful disc from Arrow. I hope more people are picking that up and watching it throughout the year, because it is 100% worth it. The next one, and in fact these next two, are actually streaming only releases that came out earlier this year, and I really felt drawn to both of them. The first one is the Soderbergh film Kimi. This is one that, because it's a pandemic film focusing on the pandemic, I honestly thought I was going to hate it, and somehow walked away really enjoying every single minute of it. I think that Zoe Kravitz is certainly going to be a powerhouse actress. She carried most of this film on her own. I was very compelled with the story and the emotional aspect of isolation that she was facing, because it's something that I've felt very many times. The story itself left a little bit to be desired, especially at the end, but I think that it was a well-crafted story for the most part, and Soderbergh is just a master of his craft, even though he's technically retired and made like 7 films since then. I think he did a really great job here. And my final honorable mention, which is the other streaming only film here, is the film Fresh. So this, like, romantic drama turned cannibal horror film is really interesting. At least I think that the filming sensibilities behind this film is actually going to be a little more impactful than the film itself. I think that it was really well made and had some really interesting set pieces. The hard part with this film is that not everything worked quite successfully. I think that it was tense until it wasn't, and obviously that's a completely benign sentence, but I think that it was absolutely a film that could deliver on the horrors, and unfortunately it let up when it didn't need to, and that's where it fell a little bit flat for me. All right, those are honorable mentions, and now my actual favorite top 10. And again, favorite, not best. I understand a few of these would be nowhere near the best of list from 2022, just ones that meant a lot to me. In the 10th spot for me is the film Pearl. Now, Ty West's duology that was released in 2022 is an astonishing achievement. The fact that he put out 2 films in 1 year with the same star, and both of them are incredible, is a monumental achievement. The monologue at the end of this film is glorious, but really the most important thing about this film is Mia Goth through and through. Mia Goth's performance calls back to Wizard of Oz and A Simpler Time, and is just something so interesting to have a character piece like this delivered in a very 2022 lens that I could not look away from. Absolutely enjoyed this film. Next up for me is Jordan Peele's Nope. So this is a small scale sci-fi epic that I loved for sure, but I definitely wanted him to lean more into the spooky aspects of the sci-fi. I think that we had a couple scenes that were very tense, and then a couple scenes at the very end that were philosophically terrifying. But other than that, I think that this film just had some really great characters, a really great brother-sister relationship that is not shown in film quite so often, and I certainly got what I wanted from each of the characters in this film. I think that Jordan Peele is genuinely a massive talent, and one that is able to deliver with a script unlike any other. I cannot wait to see what he does next. Number 8 was a very recent watch for me. I came a little bit late to Glass Onion, a Knives Out story, and I really liked it. I think that the story is perhaps close to as good as the first one. I think that the ensemble is also very close to as good as the first one. I felt a little let down by the ending, unfortunately. It was one that a lot of people sort of guessed what was going to be happening all along. And not that that necessarily takes away from it too much, but I feel like Rian Johnson sort of took the easy way out with this one. And I can't necessarily fault him for that. I think that it was a well-composed story, and when it comes to something that's like a mystery like this, that's the most important thing. An odd piece about this is I felt like the script was very tight, but it did feel like it was a little longer than it needed to be. There were a few things that sort of overstayed their welcome. Without those things in the film, I feel like this would have been a little breezier, and one that people would have enjoyed watching just a touch more. Next up on my list, number 7 is Barbarian. And obviously, this got a lot of attention this year. Don't need to break it down a whole lot further than it was. I think our core performance from the 2 individuals at the beginning part of the film is great. I think the misdirect of suddenly bringing on Justin Long to be a key character in this movie is one of the best aspects of this entire year. I did have a couple problems with the ending and the way that it sort of scrambled to the finish line, and some inconsistencies that didn't quite work for me. Overall, it was a good modern horror film that did not shy away from the more difficult things to show on camera, and for that, I'm very grateful. Number 6 on my list is a recent watch as well, and this is one that is just fun through and through. The film Ambulance by Michael Bay. Wow. He is a master of action. Obviously, the drone shots got a lot of attention this year, and for good reason, because there were definitely too many of them. But the storyline was compelling. The action was just pumping through my veins. It was a film that I had a lot of fun watching, and because of that, it made me want to watch more and more stuff by Michael Bay. And I cannot watch a film that he's done without just going, God, he is just an auteur through and through. He is fantastic. Obviously, it's not this compelling, amazing art piece that has metaphorical layers on top of metaphorical layers. However, it is an incredible popcorn flick that was well written and very well acted, and I am stoked on it. I think that it was a wonderful, wonderful film. All right, top five for me. Number five for me is The Batman. I loved this movie. I think this is the best portrayal of Batman other than the animated series ever, literally. I don't think that the portrayal of Bruce Wayne held up as well. The score on this one was incredible. I've shared the story in here a few times, but I saw this film in a theater. I left and it was in the middle of a lightning storm, and immediately put the score on in the car and just had an incredible drive home. It is such like a vibey movie, one that I really love the detective aspects of it, things that they've shied away from showing in Batman films for quite some time, and honestly, never really the way that they did it in this movie. I love the opening of this film. The first 10 or 12 minutes, it felt perfect. Genuinely, not a thing I would change. I really love the aspect that the criminals in Gotham were genuinely afraid to walk out when the bat signal was in the air because he was that imposing. And it was just a really well acted film. I mean, the fact that we have Colin Farrell in this and he's unrecognizable, the fact that Zoe Kravitz is incredible in this, the fact that Paul Dano is really on screen for so little yet has such a memorable part is amazing. And then of course Robert Pattinson absolutely killing it as Batman. I loved this movie quite a bit. Number four on my list is one that feels a little bit overhated. I thoroughly enjoyed Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I've said on here a few times, I think this is about to be like a generationally defining horror film for a lot of probably the older Gen Zs. And I think that this movie was hilarious, beautiful to look at. Rachel Sennett carried this film. I think that some of the dialogue in this was masterfully written, and the ending, even though it was not super difficult to figure out what was going to happen, it was one that I enjoyed and was glad that they actually showed on film. The film itself is really interesting when you look at the idea of this like exercisable empathy for others, and the fact that this movie hits it head on so many times I think is super important for the way that we approach things like social media nowadays. And the message here, which not every film needs a message obviously, but this one, even though it wasn't 100% in your face, I think it was in your face enough to matter and to be considered for people that was watching this. Number three for me is The Banshees of Inisherin. I really identified with Colin from this film, and it hurt to watch quite a bit. I've felt myself growing away from people and places and things for a long time, and to see it put in a beautiful setting, the way that Ireland was portrayed, and just have a relationship fall apart because adults aren't always going to be friends, unfortunately. It felt just so devastating, and the dialogue written by Martin McDonagh is amazing. The cinematography in this is just astonishingly beautiful. Ireland is a gift to cinema when we can see things like this. The real gift wrapped in this film, though, is Colin Farrell's performance is remarkable. He was absolutely breathtaking in this movie. I loved watching this and was glued to the screen. Even though there didn't seem to be an underlying reason that we were ever shown, the fact that friendships can just dissipate and that should be okay is just a part of life that we don't hear told very often, and it was nice to see. My second favorite film of the year was the other Ty West film, and that was X. This just felt like it was made for me. I loved every aspect of that. The tension in this film is palpable. I go back to the alligator scene quite often, how the drone shot over the lake is just drawing you in, and you see this alligator coming up, and it's just wonderfully shot. I really enjoyed the build up to finding out who this family is and what they are doing to those that are utilizing their property for making their movie. Um, but the characters in this movie are really the highlight for me. They are so individual and so personality driven that it was something that I couldn't help but just really loving the aesthetic of it. And obviously, it's very similar to something like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Ty West influences are very visible here, but it was a movie that I think is going to influence a lot of other filmmakers. And especially when you consider the fact that this is going to be a trilogy of films, and it so far, two for two are both just amazing movies. I'm eager to see what type of films might be influenced by this trilogy. They are already so different, and the third one appears like it's going to be just as different, if not more different. So I cannot wait to see Maxine. Finally, everybody that's watched this channel, you probably already know the answer. My favorite movie of the year is Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think that this is a masterpiece. The moment I watched this, I immediately saw this shoot up into like my top 10 films of all time. I've watched it multiple times. I've loved every single moment, every time. I think that the acting is genuinely incredible. I think that the Daniels created something that was nonsensical and yet was compelling and made us stare deep into this bagel of truth and come out with something that was a just remarkable experience. And each time it has driven me into this introspective space that I just love to be in. This movie was really great to see, especially the way I did the first time in a theater, fairly empty theater, because it was kind of deep into the run of the film. But it was in LA at the Chinese Theater on Hollywood Boulevard. I loved being able to see this in such an iconic location. And I think that this movie will stand the test of time. It is absolutely iconic, and I can't wait to see what the Daniels do next, because this was just mind-blowing. All right, that's it. My favorite films of 2022. I know that I'm missing some. I know that there are others that people loved, but again, these are the ones that aligned with my taste, and I hope that you could see why. I really enjoyed a lot of the film this year. I don't think that it was like this return of amazing horror that people kind of went off on a tangent to say. I don't know that horror ever left. We've always seen really great horror come out pretty much every single year, and this year had quite a few really good films. I don't think it was the best year of horror ever or anything like that, or even like a top 10 year for horror, but it was really good. And I think the biggest thing is that people in the mainstream openly speaking on horror and the success of horror is always a good thing. And genre films carry a lot of film culture, and with that we get a lot of amazing sci-fi films, we get a lot of amazing dramas, and we see people able to take more chances in making their films, and that's what's most important. All right, that's all I've got tonight. Like I said, I've got one more video about 2022 to share, and then I'm done. That's it, final, over. I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope that you can share in the comments your favorite film for 2022. Again, may not be the best film, but your favorite film. And until next time, from one collector to all of you, hope you have a great night.